I can love you again. Her voice cracked across the fluorescent hum of the Whole Foods produce section, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. 10 years. 10 years of silence. And now she stood there, tears streaming, hands shaking, whispering the words that should have saved him a decade ago. But she didn't know yet. Didn't know what he'd found in that letter. Didn't know that the baby she'd lost alone, their baby, was the reason he'd spent 10 years building an empire on top of a grave. Before we dive into this incredible story of love, loss, and second chances, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We got more heart-wrenching stories dropping every day. And if this story touches you, leave a comment telling me what you think. Now, let's begin. The chandeliers in the Capitol Grill cast golden light over white tablecloths and power brokers. Alexander Chase sat at the corner table, the best table, always reserved, never requested, and felt nothing. At 42, he'd built Chase Ventures into an empire. Forbes called him a visionary. The Washington Post called him ruthless. But wealth, real wealth, had made his world quiet. Alone, his phone buzzed. Another acquisition closing. Another billion added. He didn't check it. Instead, he reached for his scotch and watched the ice melt in concentric circles that reminded him of wedding rings. 10 years. Meanwhile, across town in a Georgetown Whole Foods, Vanessa Reed stood in the organic produce section, trying to remember how to breathe. Her cart held 4 carefully curated items. The props of a woman pretending her life had order. She built a good life in Boston. VP of Marketing. Harborview condo. Friends who didn't ask about her past. But her mother's stage 3 cancer had brought her back to D.C., back to the city that held all her ghosts. She hadn't meant to come to this Whole Foods. There were others, safer ones. But muscle memory was a traitor. This was where she used to buy organic kale and pretend her marriage wasn't dying. Her phone buzzed. Text from her business partner, James. Big meeting Monday. Chase Ventures interested in collaboration. Vanessa's cart stopped moving. Chase Ventures. Alexander's company. Alexander's empire. The thing he'd loved more than her. She abandoned her cart and walked out, leaving behind the carefully curated items and the pretense that she was fine. If you've ever run into someone from your past and felt your whole world tilt, hit that like button and stick around, because this story is about to get intense. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss stories like this. 10 years ago, Vanessa had loved Alexander desperately. They'd met in college, him ambitious and funny, her drawn to his intensity. He'd made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. The proposal of Fiola Mare had been perfect, even though he'd butchered the Shakespeare quote. She'd said yes without hesitation, absolutely certain this man was her forever. But somewhere between I do and their 5th anniversary, Alexander disappeared into his empire. 3rd anniversary. She'd waited 2 hours at their restaurant. He'd shown up at 11 p.m., reeking of scotch and apologies about Tokyo investors. 4th anniversary. She didn't make reservations. Ordered Thai food alone. 5th anniversary. She'd discovered she was pregnant that morning. 3 months along. Made his favorite dinner to tell him. He called at 6. Emergency board meeting. Don't wait up. 2 weeks later, cramping at her desk. Then the blood. So much blood. She called him 17 times from the ER. 17 voicemails that got progressively more desperate. Alexander, I need you. Alexander, please. Alexander, something's wrong. By the time he'd called back from Singapore, it was over. The doctor had said, I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat. She'd been alone. Completely alone. She never told him about the baby. How could she? How do you tell a man his child died while he was negotiating quarterly projections? 3 months later, she'd packed her bags and said the words that would haunt her. I can't love you anymore. He'd been on a conference call. Hong Kong deal. Didn't even mute it. She'd left. He'd finished the call. Made $7 million that night. Lost everything that mattered. Drop a comment if you've ever felt invisible in a relationship. And if you're enjoying the story, smash that like button. It helps us reach more people who need to hear stories about healing and second chances. Monday arrived wrapped in frost and false confidence. Vanessa stood in the lobby of Chase Tower and wondered if it was too late to fake her own death. The partnership deal was huge, $50 million in contracts. Career-defining. Her business partner James was ecstatic. But Vanessa's hands shook as the elevator climbed to the 42nd floor. The receptionist smiled. Miss Peterson will be handling your meeting today. Not him. Thank God, not him. The meeting began professionally. Catherine Peterson led the discussion on the waterfront redevelopment project. 20 minutes of market analysis and projected returns. Then the conference room door opened. Alexander Chase stood in the doorway, and 10 years collapsed into seconds. He'd aged, gray at the temples, lines bracketing his mouth. But his eyes, those impossible gray eyes, hadn't changed, and they were locked on her. Time stopped. Shock, recognition, pain, anger, something else she couldn't name. Mr. Chase, Catherine stood, confused. I wasn't expecting. Change of plans. His voice was deeper, rougher. I'm sitting in on this one. The meeting stretched into eternity. 45 minutes where she could feel his presence like a physical weight. He asked questions, intelligent, probing, but never directed anything at her specifically. Until, Ms. Reed, your background is in marketing, not real estate development. I've expanded my expertise over the past decade. I've worked on 3 major projects in Boston. Successfully. Boston, different market entirely. Markets are markets. The principles remain constant. Do they? Some things change more than you'd expect. Time has a way of altering fundamentals. They weren't talking about real estate anymore. The tension became unbearable. When Catherine called the meeting to an end, Alexander said, Ms. Reed, a word, privately, alone in the conference room for the first time in 10 years. The words exploded out. What are you doing here? His voice was low, controlled. Barely. My job. In D.C. You're in D.C. My mother is sick. I transferred. I didn't know you'd be involved in this project. You could have called. A bitter laugh escaped her. Called? Alexander, you haven't tried to contact me in 9 years. Why would I call you? The fight was brutal. Years of pain and anger surfacing. She screamed about being invisible in their marriage, about falling apart while he worked 80-hour weeks, about anniversaries missed and phone calls ignored. He countered that she'd left without fighting, without giving him a chance to fix it. You want the truth? She finally said. I did fight. For 3 years I fought. Every dinner you missed. Every time you chose your laptop over coming to bed. I was fighting. You just weren't paying attention. Then tell me now. Tell me who you are. What you want. It's too late for that. Is it? Is it really? Because I don't think you'd be here if you believe that. I came back for my mother. For work. Not for closure. And definitely not for you. But her voice cracked on the last word. Betraying her. He asked her to dinner. To talk. Really talk. She said no. Then yes. Then no again. As she left, he said, I'm sorry for the call. For not hanging up. For everything. She didn't turn around. But in the elevator, she felt her carefully rebuilt life begin crack. If this story is hitting you in the feels, show some love with a like. And subscribe. We post emotional, real-life inspired stories every week. What would you do in Vanessa's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That night at Fiola Mare, their restaurant, where he proposed, Alexander looked tired, lonely, human in a way he'd never been before. They ordered wine, sat in loaded silence. I was a terrible husband, he began. Yes. I took you for granted. Yes. But what I don't understand is why you didn't fight for us. That's when Vanessa told him about the baby. I was pregnant. Our 5th anniversary. I was going to tell you. I was 12 weeks along. His face went white. And then you called, said you had an emergency meeting. 2 weeks later, I started bleeding. Called you 17 times. Left desperate voicemails. But you were in Singapore, closing the Meridian deal. She described going to the ER alone. Hearing, I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat alone. Losing their daughter, Emma. She'd named her Emma. Completely alone. Alexander broke. Tears streaming. Discontrolled. Composed billionaires shattered in the middle of the restaurant. You lost, we lost. A baby, yes, a daughter. 3 months along. And you never even knew she existed because you were never there. The grief was raw, devastating. He knelt beside her chair, took her hands, apologized with his whole body. But Vanessa said the words that mattered. I don't want apologies. I wanted you. 10 years ago, I needed my husband, and he was making millions. And now I don't know what I want. You're grieving. We both are. For her. For us. For everything we lost. I named her Emma. Emma, that was your grandmother's name. They cried together in Fiola Mare. Finally, grieving the daughter they'd never hold. The family they'd never become. This story is breaking my heart. If you're still watching, leave a comment with a heart emoji. And please subscribe. We need your support to keep sharing these powerful stories. The next morning, Alexander showed Vanessa something he'd been building. A rooftop garden. String lights creating a canopy of gold. And roses. Pink roses everywhere. Emma's favorite. I've been building this for 3 years, he said. Every weekend. Therapy. A way to process grief I didn't understand. I didn't know I was building it for Emma until you told me about her. In the corner, a plaque, Emma's garden. In memory of the daughter we never got a hold. May this space bring peace to those who grieve. Vanessa broke, completely, and he held her while she sobbed. I've got you. I'm here. I'm right here. Then he showed her his house, not the penthouse, but a modest home in Chevy Chase with a backyard garden. Pink roses. A space for family. For life. This is who I became after you left. Not the billionaire in Forbes. This, a man learning to build something living instead of something corporate. He gave her a promise ring. Pink tourmaline, Emma's birthstone. I'm not proposing. We agreed to take it slow. But I wanted you to have something. A reminder that I'm here. That when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here waiting. Vanessa looked at the ring, the garden, the man offering her everything. And she realized the question wasn't whether she'd been enough. It was whether she was brave enough now. Brave enough to forgive, to trust, to choose love over fear. Ask me, she said. What? Ask me. Now, right here with vegetables half chopped and every mundane beautiful thing that makes this life real. Because I'm ready. He knelt in their kitchen. Vanessa Reed, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving I've learned how to be present? Yes, I'll marry you. They kissed, tasting rain and tears and possibility. The next 6 months were different. They dated, actually dated. Alexander showed up, was present. They attended therapy together, fought honestly, healed slowly. They planted a cherry tree on what would have been Emma's 10th birthday, built the waterfront memorial garden together, a public space honoring families who'd experienced loss. And when Victoria showed up at a meeting, causing Vanessa's old insecurities to flare, they talked through it, learned trust, chose each other again. 3 months later, Alexander gave her a promise ring in their kitchen. She told him to ask her for real, and he did. They married in September in Emma's backyard garden. 40 people, simple vows, promises to show up, be present, choose each other. The officiant asked, "Do you promise to show up, to be present, to choose her every day?" "I do. I promise. Every single day." "Do you promise to trust, to believe in the man he's become?" "I do. I promise. With all my heart." As they kissed, their wedding vows complete, Emma's garden bloomed around them. 5 years later, Vanessa held their daughter Lily in Georgetown University Hospital. Alexander sat beside her, looking at their baby with wonder. "Emma would have loved being a big sister," Vanessa whispered. "She's here, watching." And somehow she could feel it. Her first daughter's presence, blessing this moment, this family they built from ashes. Outside, the sun rose over Washington, D.C., over the city where everything had ended and begun again. Vanessa looked at her sleeping daughter and her husband and whispered the truth. "I never stopped loving." Here's what they don't tell you about second chances. They're terrifying, because first chances come with ignorance. You don't know what can go wrong. But second chances come with full knowledge. You know exactly how it ended. Know the ways you failed. And maybe that's what makes second chances more valuable than first ones. Because choosing love when you know its cost, when you've already paid the price once, that's not naivety. That's courage. Vanessa and Alexander chose courage. Chose to believe that 10 years apart had taught them what being together couldn't. Chose to trust that people can change. That loss can make you better instead of bitter. That love can be resurrected. And maybe you're reading this because you need to believe that too. Maybe someone broke your heart. Maybe you broke someone's heart. Maybe you're wondering if second chances are real. Here's the truth. Second chances are real, but only if both people choose them. Only if both people do the hard work of change. Only if both people are willing to risk everything again. But when they work, when two people actually choose each other twice, knowing full well what they're choosing, that's not just love. That's resurrection. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button. We share stories like this every day. Stories about love, loss, healing, and hope. Leave a comment telling me what you think. Have you ever had a second chance? Do you believe in love's power to resurrect? And most importantly, share this video. Someone in your life needs to hear that it's never too late. That change is possible. That love is worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.